I was chatting with a buddy of mine who just got his first serious welding gig, and he was stuck on the classic, do I go cheap and hope for the best, or splash out on something that actually covers the jobs I'll see on the shop floor? He didn't want to throw away cash on a machine that would sit half-used, but he also didn't want to be the guy who shows up with a single-process welder and ends up scrambling for a rental. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've been digging through the specs, scrolling through the few reviews that are out there, and even watching a handful of Hansen videos, just to make sure I can tell you whether the Miller Multimatic 215 Pro with the TIG Contractor Kit is the kind of tool that will actually make his day-to-day easier or end up as another box of metal on the shelf. First off, let's talk about what makes a multi-process welder worth its weight in steel. In a real shop you'll see a mix of thin sheet metal, structural tubing, and sometimes even stainless or aluminum that needs a clean finish. If you're only buying a MIG or only a TIG, you either end up with a lot of extra equipment or you're forced to compromise on the weld quality for a particular material. The Multimatic 215 Pro tries to solve that by packing both pulsed MIG and pulsed TIG into one chassis, plus a built-in autoset system called BeadVision that claims to help you dial in the right parameters without a lot of guesswork. In practice, that means you can walk into a job, hook up the MIG side for a quick tack on a steel frame, flip the selector and have the TIG side ready for a precise, low-heat weld on a thin aluminum panel all without swapping out the machine. For a small business owner, a mobile fabricator, or a serious hobbyist who likes to dabble in a range of metals, that flexibility translates into real money saved on rental fees and on the time lost reconfiguring gear. Now, who's actually going to get the most out of that flexibility? If you're a full-time professional who works exclusively on heavy-duty steel structures and you already have a dedicated TIG rig for the occasional aluminum job, you might find the extra TIG capability nice but not essential. In that scenario, you're already paying for a larger power source, and the added weight of a multi-process unit could be a downside when you have to load it onto a truck. On the flip side, if you're just starting out and you know you'll be moving between a garage, a job site, and maybe a friend's shop, the all-in-one nature of the Multimatic 215 Pro is a real selling point. The included TIG Contractor Kit adds a few extra accessories like a foot pedal and a set of tungsten tips so you're not scrambling to buy those parts separately. That kit alone can shave a couple of $100s off what you'd spend piecing together a comparable setup from scratch. Let's get into the day-to-day usability. The first thing I noticed in the demo videos is how the machine's control panel is laid out. Instead of a maze of knobs, Miller has grouped the most used settings, voltage, amperage, pulse width into a single rotary dial with an LCD that updates in real time. When you switch from MIG to TIG, the machine remembers the last settings you used for that process, which is a small but huge convenience if you're bouncing between materials. The BeadVision feature is basically a sensor that watches the arc and suggests tweaks if it thinks the weld will be out of spec. In a real workshop, that could mean fewer rejected joints and less rework, especially for newcomers who haven't yet built the intuition for fine-tuning a TIG arc. The program memory lets you store up to 10 different recipes, so you could have a thin aluminum preset and a structural steel preset ready to go with a single button press. That cuts down on the mental load of remembering exact numbers when you're under pressure. However, there are a few practical trade-offs you should keep in mind. The Multimatic 215 Pro is a 215 amp machine, which puts it in the middle of the power range for most small to medium projects. It will handle inch steel quite comfortably, but if you're regularly welding 1-inch or thicker plate, you'll start to feel the limitation and may need a bigger unit. The dual voltage capability, 115V and 230V, is handy, but you do have to make sure the site you're on can supply the right voltage, otherwise you're stuck with lower output on the 115V side. Another point that shows up in the videos is the weight, about 140 pounds. It's portable enough to load onto a trailer, but you won't want to lug it around the shop by hand for long periods. If you're planning a mobile welding business that moves daily, you'll need a sturdy cart or a small forklift to make the move painless. One area where the Multimatic 215 Pro